What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. Everyone who's tuning in today, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. It's time to get real, man. Same old deal. 365 days later. Ain't nothing changed but the date and the calendar. That's all that's changed, man. You can switch our calendars every year since the summer of 2018, and it's the same old bit, man. It's the same old hustle. It's the same tired play. What I'm referring to, man, is one Rob Pelinka. Once again, man, he's under the microscope. The annual Rob needs to start making moves. He needs to make trades. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. The front office don't know what they're doing. As we know, Rob Pelinka is the general manager. But actually, now I think he was this season promoted or officially announced as the team's president of basketball operations. Because we all know the former team president, because of pressure, mounting pressure to get things done at the snap of a finger, he had to step down. This was back during the hurricanes, in the middle of the hurricanes, first year being brought to this franchise, this historic franchise. And it's the same old talking points, man. The Lakers are a mom and pop shop. They don't know how to keep up with the times. This is what happens when you sell yourself short. That's all this is, man. This is what happens when you sell yourself short. They weren't calling the Lakers a mom and pop shop or incapable when they drafted that young core from 2014 and 2018, especially the 2 seasons prior to bringing the Hurricane to this historic franchise. I remember it all like it was yesterday. I've kept tabs. I've kept notes because I knew we was going to be taken for a ride and we was going to be had pretty much every season. Even the year where they so-called won, we was had because they won in a bubble. In a bubble that featured a tournament style play. It was presented, it was marketed, it was structured as a tournament. And out of the bubble spawned the play-in tournament. I just found that out last month. I did some research on that. Where now championships are being devalued. The playoff pursuit has been devalued. Now, like I said, I can halfway adjust to the play-in, because once you get to the playoffs, that's the 8 best teams in the conference. Although I still believe that the 82 game schedule gives you plenty enough time to prove if you are a playoff level team or not. 82 games. But anyway, Rob Pelinka, once again, is being asked to make moves. Now, just think about this. During this season's trade deadline, Rob Pelinka organized and officialized 3 different trades over the span of, let's say, 3 weeks. 3 different trades in the span of 3 weeks. But they gonna tell you he ain't trying to make no moves. 3, not 1, three. The first one involved, as we know, D'Angelo Russell. He was traded to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. Shake Milton barely got any clock during the first round series between the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dorian Finney-Smith, he couldn't really fulfill expectations as to why they brought him to the team for defensive purposes, but really, in essence, he's a spot-up shooter. So therefore, his production or his effort couldn't contribute to anything. And then the second trade, of course, was Anthony Davis, the very player the Lakers will push to mortgage their future for, to get back during the summer 2019, who was said to become a lifelong Laker and retire in that jersey. He was traded to the Dallas Mavericks for Luka Doncic. And then it wasn't even a week after that trade. Think about that. They say that's the greatest trade in league history. That's what they said when it went down. But yet, that still wasn't enough. They attempted to trade rookie Dalton Knecht, who was having an awesome rookie season starting out the first 2 months in, traded to the Charlotte Hornets for Mark Williams. And that trade was rescinded because Williams apparently had some sort of health issues that were undetected at first, and they rescinded. Otherwise, Dalton Knecht would be in Charlotte right now. The same Dalton Knecht who entered the NBA as the best three-point shooter in the nation from playing for the University of Tennessee Volunteers. And he was an ideal rookie because he played, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he play all 4 years in school? If I'm not mistaken. Ideal rookie. Can come in immediately and make a contribution to the team. But that wasn't good enough. And the first month of the season, he helped the Lakers win like 3 games just from his ability to shoot the ball. And basically what's going on. Now remember, they traded for Luka. And the talking heads was, it's the same pattern, man. Stick their chest out, blow V8, brag, get cocky. They said, oh man, the Lakers didn't need AD. They didn't need Anthony Davis. Now, mind you, also in that trade for Luka was Max Christie. So in that trade for Luka Doncic, who I have nothing against, this is not even about Luka. They traded away the best interior defender in Anthony Davis, who they mortgaged the future 6 years ago to get. And then the best perimeter defender, Max Christie, who was 21 years old, playing above his value. He was drafted in the second round from Michigan State. And he was inserted into the starting lineup, and he was averaging double figures in the process, averaging like 12 or 13 a game. As the fifth scorer, not as the third scorer or fourth scorer, the fifth scorer, averaging double figures. Crazy. But that's even greater in a sense. You go back and look at Showtime. Showtime, it was on a rare occasion where they had all 5 guys, year after year averaging double figures. I think Kurt Rambis, when he was starting power forward, at least I'll say Kurt Rambis, he was averaging around like 8 points a game, which is cool. I mean, I'm just saying he wasn't good enough. So they shipped him out of there, bringing another superstar. Then they try to convince the fans that they didn't need AD interior defense because initially, when you make a trade, you get a little boost there. You try to prove, okay, man, we can win without the guy who we just traded. Oh man, we can win the title now with Luka with no AD, no perimeter defense. And then reality hit, smack dab in the face, when it was money time in the playoffs, and they lost to the Timberwolves in 5 games, and Minnesota wasn't even playing their best basketball. Minnesota tends to play, undisciplined and turned the ball over like didn't even matter. They still beat them in 5 games, and they was barely hitting a 3-point shot after the first game of the series, and they still beat them in 5 games. That's how far away this team is in all-time win-now pursuit is away from winning the championship. That's how far away they are, man. So once again, they pin the tail on the donkey, a la Rob Pelinka, and he's being hit and punched like a pinata, and he got to get right back on the phones and make more moves. Now, mind you, God dang it, man. Tell you, it's a head scratcher and it's nauseating and it's actually downright sickening. You remember 2 years ago when they got the mid-season overhaul, D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Mo Bamba. Oh man, the Lakers are set. Oh man, they ready to rock and roll. They finna win the title. Do you realize if it weren't for that move, they wouldn't have made the playoffs for the second straight year? And it wasn't necessarily because the players who they brought in were super talented per se, although D'Angelo Russell is a good basketball player, and he did earn All-Star distinction before in his career, and he did lead a team to the playoffs before in 2019. But the problem was the other players. 2 of them guys were put in the starting unit, and they're not starters. So come playoff time, when you play a real team that's complete across the board, 1-5, the Denver Nuggets swept the Lakers in the conference finals. You see how reality hit, man, when you start facing these real teams? So what I'm saying is, going into that next season, the 23-24 campaign, they re-signed Vanderbilt to a 4-year deal. He's been off injured. He's not an offensive player. So come playoff time, you can't really play him extended minutes. And for the second straight year, that's what we found out. Because he barely got any minutes versus Minnesota. And he was healthy. And it ain't gonna change. You re-sign Hachimura, who the Lakers are reportedly looking to trade. They signed him for 3 years. They re-signed Austin Reeves, who I have no issue with Austin Reeves. But the conundrum that he faces is he's asked to play a role that he would be more suited coming off the bench, being that 6 man. But because of the talent depletion over the past 5 years, he has to play a role that he really shouldn't be playing. So when you play with the Hurricane, more often than not, you're going to play out of position. And then the critics are going to start looking at what you perceive as to what you can do versus what you can't do. And that's where the losing mentality exacerbates itself. It's like a self-perpetual cycle of a defeatist attitude. Right? And then you resign D'Lo on the cheap because, he was under the trade block right after the loss in the conference finals. So they got him to sign for the cheap. Then you bring in Cam Reddish through free agency, who was already a journeyman in the league at the age of 23 years old. And he's been waived as of this year. All but forgotten. You signed Christian Woods, who was waived too, had to have knee surgery, who was asked to play center when he's not a center. You signed Jackson Hayes to 2-year deal, right? They tried to position him, they tried to posture him as a legitimate starting center when he was never a legitimate starting center. You signed Taurean Prince, who played here 1 year and left to go play with the Milwaukee Bucks. You bring in Spencer Dinwiddie. Well, I won't mention him because he wasn't signed to the buyout. So you signed all these players via free agency. Oh, you signed Gabe Vincent 2 to 3 years, $30 million to be a backup point guard when he's not a backup point guard to begin with. So you're bringing in names who were hot at that moment. The talking heads, built, try to, brand them and gas them up, saying that the Lakers had the deepest team in the league now, and they was ready to avenge the loss to Denver. And then on opening night, Denver, God, they toyed around with them, dog. Opening night ring ceremony was beating them by 20 before they called off the dogs. So the problem is, man, these talking heads, they gas these teams up only because of the Hurricane being on the roster to try to paint him as, oh man, he's going to lead them to the promised land. And it's all smoke and mirrors, man. And then when it don't work out by season's end. Now remember last year going to the playoffs, they didn't even want them playing Denver because they didn't believe to begin with. It was all talk. Because they played off of that conference finals appearance, which was really smoke and mirrors because of the circumstances. Because that wasn't the same team who started the beginning of the season. They trade half of them away. Everybody else pretty much went to battle with the same team that they started the season with. So the Lakers got a temporary jump on the competition until they ran to a real team. And the reality is, before I shut this production down for the day, no matter what move they make, no matter what trade, because there really ain't no trades out there. You only got two. Your draft picks have been depleted. Your only tradable draft pick is 6 years out in 2031. They should be applied for the next decade, and you're going to use that in 2025 is total insanity. So what would the Lakers have? But see, so what happens is, knowing that their asset has been depleted out, they literally snatched a superstar from his own franchise to try to save this franchise. So now the rallying cry is, well, Luka is going to be the face of this franchise for 10 years. It's not going to happen. They said the same thing about Anthony Davis. He was gone. He's already gone. And you can't predict that far out anyway. 10 years, that's a long time. He's 26 years old. 10 years, so you think that he's going to be the same player? And you hate to think like that. Even the Hurricane, the averages, the production as far as the points per game and all that he has been able to maintain is at the expense of playing defense on the other end. If he had to play on both sides of the court, both sides of the ball consistently throughout his career, he would have faded out years ago. The attrition would have kicked in just like with everybody else that's ever played this game. So that's where the manipulation comes in. But when it comes money time, when you got to compete, the reality is the gig has been up since the bubble. Here go a little fun fact for the listeners out there. Outside of the bubble, when it comes to postseason play with the Hurricanes so-called leading the march, this team has a cumulative record of 12 wins and 20 losses. Outside of the bubble in 2020, the Lakers, with this guy leading the march, per se, has a cumulative postseason record of 12 wins and 20 losses. And when you compare that and ratio that out to his finals record, it's almost carbon copy in terms of the losing percentage. So out of 34 games, that's 12 and 20, that's 32 games. That's a losing percentage of around 40%. And it's probably a little less than that, to tell you the truth. Probably more like 37 and a half. They're losing with this dude leading the way. They've been losing overall with this dude since year one. They finished the season 8 games under 500. 8 freaking games under 500, people. But they gonna tell you that he saved the franchise. And when it all goes to the wayside by year's end, their crutch is, well, we were the Lakers before they brought him to the team. No, That ain't got nothing to do with right now, because they said right now, since summer 2018, he was the savior and they was going to compete for multiple and win multiple championships. And as far as what happened previously from 2013 to 2017, well, number one, a trade in 2011 was blocked by the league that reverberated and set this franchise back 5 years alone. Blocking that, because I never seen a trade get blocked before by the league. The league blocked that trade of Chris Paul, right? And then as a result, the Lakers was making moves that they would not have made otherwise, that further destabilized the team. And then, of course, all that led to Kobe trying to lift the franchise on his shoulders, literally, with an aged point guard in Steve Nash and a Dwight Howard who was, you can tell he wanted to be elsewhere. And as a result, Kobe wound up injuring his Achilles, and then the bottom dropped out. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fell off that like they did. But they always want to paint this narrative as if all of a sudden the Lakers didn't know what they was doing no more. See, but at the end of the day, they losing with this dude, man. Period. It ain't about the regular season. It ain't about finishing in top 3 seed, which was highly manipulative in itself. This team has been losing with this dude in epic fashion. With this dude on the team, the Lakers lost a first round series, being the number 3 seed or higher for the first time in franchise history. It's so many dubious marks, it would take 5 videos to point this out. So, once again, Rob Pelinka is under the radar. Even though, man, he tried to pull the rabbit out the hat darn near 10 times. He's traded for 3 superstars in 6 years, and that's not enough. He's overhauled the roster 7 years. That's not enough. He has been a facilitator because of constant pressure of casting away darn near 20 drafted players over these past 7 years for this guy. 20 of them. I'm rounding out, but if you trade Connect, you know what I'm saying? Because they ain't drafted nobody this year. And what's crazy about it, no free agent agreed to sign with this team going into this year. Not one. They couldn't get one free agent. But all of a sudden, man, they're going to turn water into wine again, and they just going to be, free agents going to be knocking at the door. And the free agent pool is for a superstar is null and void. Ain't no superstars out there. This is what happens when you sell yourself short. That's all the Lakers have done in these 7 years. They sold themselves short. Meanwhile, you got 2 teams in the finals, especially OKC in the Western Conference, who 3 years ago was winning 22 games, and now they're in the finals after achieving the most successful season in franchise history, winning 68 games. You see what I'm saying? Because they invested, they built incrementally, year by year, year by year. They got 20 first-round picks in their stash that they can use for the next, for the foreseeable future. They ain't finna fall off at all. And we sitting there scrambling. We ain't got no big man on the team. We ain't got no center. We ain't even got a backup. And the centers that are out there, they're veteran centers. They're older. They're past their prime. So whoever you bring up in there is going to be the same dog and pony show. It don't matter. Especially after you traded the guy who you mortgaged the future to get. Once you traded AD, well, that's really it. As far as, having a legitimate big man. It don't matter who they bring up in here. But see, what happens is, it's like a dog trying to chase his own tail. When they sacrifice somebody to bring in a coveted player, well, they try to bring in low-tier players to cover the void for the player who they sacrificed to get the coveted player. You see what I'm saying? So think about it. 2 years ago, they got to overhaul the players, right? They got to overhaul. They go to the conference finals. Pretty much the same team, and then they bring up cast a young low tier players that were said to be better than the real young core, which they're not. And they got did in the first round last year, and then they got did in the first round this year after getting Luka. You see the trajectory where this franchise is headed. And they think a trade is going to, solve things. But in terms of what they say this is supposed to be about, winning championships as they try to play on the past, glory of the Lakers, they so far away from it, man. It's frightening. Because anytime you have to make a trade every year to try to keep up with the rest of the league, that means you're not even in the mix. Realistically, you're not even in the mix. Meaning, if the front office said no more, man, we putting the end of this, we finna clear house. Well, we know it's over then. But it's been over. And that's the problem. And to try to keep putting on this facade, they dig deep into the well and take more for what should be applied down the road to try to compete right now. And you just got did in the first round. Just think if Minnesota was more sound and disciplined with their style of play, they would have swept them. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. So, like I said, man, if you keep your real team, you ain't making all these trades every year. You're going to have your draft picks until it's time to make an appropriate, suitable trade. But more often than not, what the Lakers would have found out, they would have been drafting in more talent than trading to bring in star players. And we'd be sitting atop the conference. I'm talking about really sitting atop the conference. A real squad out there instead of a discombobulation. And it's all because of that guy on the team. He's not going to lead them anywhere positive. Got a head coach. This should not be a head coach with no coaching experience. And they thought that he was going to lead the way too. And then he just totally had a breakdown in the playoffs. Didn't know what to do because he didn't prepare to become a head coach by starting as an assistant coach. And then there's reports that this man's son may be a more permanent fixture of the Lakers rotation. I mean, what are we talking about, dog? What are we talking about? It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all over, man. And as they say, better late than never. Eventually, the Laker brass going to come to their senses. And the fans will support this team, man. We all need to come to our senses, man. And we need to move on from this dude, dog. Just think about this. He was brought to the team losing back-to-back finals. It's not like when Kawhi was coming off of a championship when he signed with the Clippers, where you can say, okay, man, yeah, man, we got Kawhi. No, he come walking through the door with 2 championship losses in a row on a super team. Gentlemen sweep and then a full-fledged sweep. I'm talking about a brutal sweep. Losing at home in game 4 by during their 25 points. Right? He brought a loser's mentality to the franchise, people. It don't matter how many points a game he win. There's too many misgivings in his game that leads to this need to overhaul the roster every year, where nothing can sustain itself beyond that one season. You see what I'm saying? It's very frenetic. It's very chaotic. There's no real system of play. There's no definitive role for everybody on the team to be a contributor for. And it leads to constant disappointment and it leads to constant losing. So if you're losing with this guy more than you're winning, which they are, Why continue to fool yourself into thinking that you're going to be able to turn things around? You had Luke on the team this year, and he lost in the first round. They don't have no bench. When they were said to have a bench, when they made a move for Finney Smith and Shake Milton and all them guys, and then they averaged 7 points a game in the first round. They ain't got no bench. But you had a bench in 2018 that was giving you 50 plus points a game. You see how things have turned around and flip when you, in essence, when you really look at it, this franchise has been gutted out. Literally. And Rob got to make more moves. So like I said, man, I'm just a passionate fan about all this, man. I'm just trying to look at things realistically. This is 2025, and you got a team down in Oklahoma City in the Western Conference. They beat the Denver Nuggets, people. They beat the Denver Nuggets. Although it was a tough 7-game series, Denver gave them everything they had. But that's what you call becoming battle tested, going through the fire. You see what I'm saying? They played a good Minnesota team in the conference finals, you know, and they're in a great position for years to come. That's what the Lakers would have been if they would have stuck to the plan. They'd have been OKC 5 years before OKC, 4 years before OKC. Lakers in 2021 with a real squad, with the real development, they would have still vying for their championship prowess that year instead of settling for a bubble chip. Because that's how I look at it. They settled for a bubble chip. They settled for it because they sold themselves short. Because they let this dude come in and control the whole dynamic. Basically, he runs the franchise. But he's running them right into the ground. That's just right into the abyss. If he's the GOAT, as the talking is one of the people convinced that he is, why do he have to make these moves every year? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Maybe because it's all smoke and mirrors. And hopefully, eventually, Rob Pelinka will come to realize that. And he's caught in the whirlwind, man. That's why I call it the hurricane. He's caught up in the hurricane. He's right in the eye of the hurricane, literally. But as I always say, someone got to step in and say no more. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who it's going to be. It got to be somebody, man. You know. Because if not, man, he going to continue doing what he do. And it's not going to stop. So I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, JB, BTB, behind the